Thank you for listening to Depictions Media Radio. Welcome back, everyone. We all have, or we're going to have, something come up into the story of our lives where a loved one is going to become chronically ill, where we're not going to be able to find treatment, or doctors is going to reverse the condition. The odds of this happening in our lives is, it could be clearly inevitable, almost inevitable, that we're going to lose a loved one. But there's things that we can do about this now. And we're going to have Karen Tyrell come on and talk to us about some of these things that we need to have happen. And most of it is going to involve a conversation. We're going to have to sit down and we're going to have to talk with our loved ones. And the person that needs to actually do the talking is the elder of the family, because it's probably the person that's going that this illness is going to hit, and that illness is not going to be reversible, and that person is going to have to be placed into care. And it is up to them really to help us decide who is going to be best fit to look over that caring, and who is going to have to kind of sit in the background and like, is it really just play advocate or in the decision making? As a family, we're all going to have to come together for this conversation, because ultimately we all need to come to some agreements of what the best direction is for the care of our loved ones, how it's going to happen, and we also need to come together and decide who is going to be the best representative, and the person who's going to need to sign off on legal documents and be the one to represent the family in times of struggle, and at the time when maybe we need to end things, and who and how they're going to represent all of us as loved ones to the caregivers, so they understand that we, as the loved ones to the person in care, that we understand what is happening and the course of direction that is best suited to the person that we truly love. We need to start honoring that person now while they're alive, so that they understand that we do love them. And they need to be the one leading the conversation, so that we know what their best wishes are and how to handle them. Now, we're going to bring Karen Tyrell on from Dementia Solutions, and she's going to explain to us some of the reasons why we really need to make sure we have proper documentation in place, and what those documents should look like, and what could happen maybe if we don't do what we're talking about. There could be hurdles that we need to climb, that we could have climbed over them way easier with an earlier conversation versus a later conversation. So let's welcome Karen to the show and hear what it is that we need to do for our loved ones as they grow older. So Welcome back, Karen. It's always great to see you. It's always a pleasure to have you on the show. Um, you, uh, well, the topic in which you deal with is something that's embedded in our society, and it isn't going to go away. Um,
Mhm.
and just about every family at some point may actually have to deal with dementia, right?
More and more families that I've noticed are coming forward admitting that they have somebody they know that's affected by dementia, whether it's in their family or their friends, their neighbors. It is on the rise, unfortunately, and it has been this way for many years since I got into the field 27 years ago.
Hmm.
Watching the numbers change, watching the stats increase, it's heartbreaking. And the only thing that I feel I can do is to help with providing information, education, support to the families and the caregivers that are going down this journey.
Yeah, and you've done that really well with Dementia Solutions. You were a consultant on a dementia village, which
Yes.
I think we did a segment on that, and some photos are out there of it and everything. Which a beautiful
Mhm.
place, not too far away from where I am sitting right now. Um, and you also wrote the book, "Cracking the Dementia Code," right?
Correct, yes. And that's
So
when we first met, and that was back in 2013.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So um, so we yeah, I've been along for the ride for at least half of your career in this. So so
And now we're aging ourselves, but
yeah.
yeah. um,
Oh, why not, right? It age happens, but age doesn't have to happen with dementia. That's the whole point. That's something that's
no,
abnormal. So
no, yes, dementia is not supposed to be a normal part of aging. And that's important for people to understand this because there's a lot of situations that happen where there's family members watching a loved one age, and then they start to become forgetful and they think, oh, this is normal. And oh, this is part of aging. And they never get that person to a doctor looked at to discover what might be happening for that person. So I really caution people that when we do see changes, let's take it seriously. Let's not just, attribute it to being old age. There could be something going on that could be treated to bring that person back to their baseline of how they used to be if they're noticing some symptoms of dementia. So that's always the first thing. Let's go find out what's causing the changes in an individual. It might be treatable.
yeah. Well, there's like a whole spectrum of things that are treatable even before we might even get a diagnosis of dementia, right?
Yeah. I can give you some examples that often have been missed and people don't realize. Some families think, oh, grandma's getting old timers disease. So they kind of start using those planned words like, but again, it's not supposed to be a normal part of aging. Yes, numbers are rising, and it is because we are getting older. Age is our biggest risk factor in all of this, but there's been families who are noticing changes in a loved one, and it was actually due to a condition that was treatable, such as low vitamin B12. And so once a
Oh.
person increased their levels of B12, they went back to normal. Low magnesium, low
Hmm.
potassium. So these are some of the easy things we can investigate by doing some blood tests to find out where our levels are. So this is just a few examples. There's other things like thyroid conditions.
Hmm.
People who maybe not realize they have the hypothyroidism. If that isn't treated properly, that it does increase a person's risk of developing symptoms of dementia. So you need to keep levels at a good, so their thyroid levels at a good place for each individual, so that we can prevent those symptoms of dementia. And then there's depression. Unfortunately, people don't realize that untreated depression over the years can result in showing up as dementia symptoms later in life. And if we want to try to treat the
Hmm.
treat the depression, it might surprise us that those dementia symptoms could go away. unfortunately, if we don't treat at an ideal time and it goes untreated for many, many years and into the later years of someone's life, we may start to have what doctors have claimed as it could turn into permanent Alzheimer's disease. So it's getting the treatment and getting that diagnosis ahead of time to see if it's something else that might be causing the person to develop the symptoms of dementia. But unfortunately, there are many cases where it may not be a treatable type of condition. It may be a non-curable type of dementia.
Right.
But it's better to rule out what we can at the beginning.
And do it early, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean,
And if
those, I'm just going to say, those around us are aging, right? For myself, you talk about aging myself, I'm going to point blank age myself. I'm 56 years old. It's like, and my sister's 13 years older than me, and over 65, and I do ensure that her daughters are looking out for her and things like that. My mother's 86 years old, and she's in it's a retirement community. It's not really a care facility, but it's attached to a larger care facility if it is at all needed, right?
those are wonderful to have. It's like a campus of care, they call it, where there's different levels of care that can be provided in that one organization and that one property, where people get to know one another, and it builds into friendships inside that community.
Yeah.
So that's helpful. But what I was going to say is that most statistics show that people over the age of 65 are the ones in the higher category of potentially developing a type of dementia that is non-curable. However, there are people that have been diagnosed with non-curable types of dementia as early as 40. So it can happen earlier on. Going to your family doctor is always the first best step. Maybe they might need to refer you on to a specialist to do more testing, whether it's a neurologist, whether it's a geriatric specialist. There are other options maybe to get second opinions. And I really recommend that, to rule out what we're dealing with ahead of time so we can work on providing the support, whether it's medical treatment, whether it's other types of strategies on treatment, and just getting the whole family educated on what we're dealing with so they can be a big part of the whole supportive time for that individual. They need their support.
Yeah. See, now you brought up something I alluded to in the introduction, is conversation. That we as families need to have that conversation. And who is it that you think should actually start leading off that conversation to ensure that our loved ones are taken care of and respected the way they want to be respected as we grow closer towards the end?
Well, every family and the dynamics in every family will be different. And so there's no perfect way to get this going. It depends on the relationships. But the individual that's aging, may have that awareness, okay, it's time to maybe have this conversation with my family. My hope would be that as people are aging, they realize the importance, and usually it's anybody over the age of 18 or 19, I think, should have legal documents in place. It doesn't matter, like I said, if you're 30 or if you're 65 or 85. We really should have some documents in place. And these are documents in Canada that are highly recommended because they're so important. If something happens to us where we're, let's say, in a medical induced coma or something, and we can't answer for ourselves, we can't make decisions for our health care, or we can't make decisions for our finances, we can't pay our bills. So we could be faced with situations, a car accident, or even advanced type of dementia. Where it's best that we have in place the three main documents, and those legal documents are, number one, the power of attorney. And I say this as number one because most people, most lawyers, and have said that is the number one document. So important for appointing someone to handle your financial matters if something should happen to you while you're alive, that you can't do it. The second one is the representation agreement here in BC. Now, every province has a different name for it, but it's basically the healthcare representative that you want to appoint to handle all your healthcare decisions. So whether or not you're, going to be staying on life support, or whether or not you're going to move to a care home. These are some choices that would have to be made. And if a person's not able to make those choices because they're not of sound mind, or they're not able to even communicate, then that representative is appointed legally that can make those choices. And sometimes in families, there's lots of children, when there's lots of people. I'm the sister, I know her best, and I'm the daughter, I know her best. But if we don't have somebody appointed, then it becomes a real challenge for that family or that individual themselves to get the proper care that they need. There is an order, but when they're in the hospital, something urgent happens, they go to the people in the lineup. But you may have an estranged family member who's in that lineup that they may go to, that you don't want them to be asking asking them for their decisions for you when you don't trust them. So we want to appoint the right person for ourselves. For me, the person that I appointed is not in the order that the government would go to. So because of that, they go to my representative first if I have these legal documents in place. Right. And so that's very important to have this. So those are the two documents to have while we're alive: financial and then healthcare representatives that we would appoint. Now, the third one is the will, but this is only when we're no longer living that the will would take place. It would basically follow our wishes. But again, having wishes in place of what you want to do with your finances, what you want to do with the car, what you want to do with the house, and share that with that representative, as well as all your healthcare matters of, what if I ever have to go into a home, somebody says, please don't give me peas. I hate eating peas. So don't put peas in my plate, when I'm at the care home. Things like that. You could put a list and share that with your representative of what you don't want and what you do want. Right.
Well, the peas thing, it's like you reminded me of my wife's her mother passed on, and when she went to visit her, they had laid bananas in front of her as part of a snack or whatever to go with her meal, right?
Okay.
And no one had listed anywhere that she as a potential intolerance to bananas.
Oh.
I mean, you're talking about, it's like, I don't want peas on my plate because I don't like peas, but and it was simply because the person who had placed her into the home hadn't gone through all that with all the rest of the family members to discover.
Interesting. Yeah. So it's very important for us who we appoint. We want to appoint that special person that we trust, that would make the right decisions for us, but we want to give them help. We want to give them some things to watch out for, because there's been people allergic to strawberries, and if we don't know those things, working in a care home as I had, it's not ideal for us. We don't want to make a mistake. So we need all that information from the representative, but also healthcare documents, and will often be transferred over.
Right. Yeah.
Even I remember hearing somebody years ago, and I agree, don't give me a perm when I'm in the care home. Years ago, and perms were a big thing. I remember thinking, please don't do that to me. And I want to make sure my healthcare representative would know this, because it's all about my personal care needs, my healthcare needs. And you can share all of this with them, what you want and don't want. So these are very important, especially in the case in my world of dementia care, because as things progress, things change. And we want to be, at one point we may say, I don't want this to happen for me. But as things progress on, we may change our mind. But we want to share that with people. But we may not be able to share everything we may feel like, oh, I'm not going to share all this until I get further down the path. But if we get further down the path, what if a stroke has happened or something has really changed that person and they can't share everything? So ideally, it's to get everything out earlier on, especially if we get a diagnosis of a progressive type of dementia that's been discovered. It'd be ideal for the person to come forward with their family to say, look, this is a diagnosis that I have. Or they can share it with one person in the family and say, okay, here's my diagnosis. Can you help me to have a conversation with everyone else? And then, because it won't be as scary if they've got more people around supporting them who understand their situation. But there might be the opposite. It might be family members noticing a change in mom or dad, grandma, grandpa, whatever it might be. And they could suggest to them to go see a doctor. I'm worried about you. Maybe it's your vitamin B levels. Let's go check that out. Rather than say the word, dementia. And unfortunately, I hear the word demented a lot, which is not as appropriate to say. Or you're getting that old timers type thing. We want to avoid those types of words, but to start it out gentle by saying, perhaps it might be your thyroid, perhaps it might be low magnesium or potassium. Let's go just look at that first. And I was actually just speaking with somebody in my neighborhood this morning whose husband is showing signs of depression, she said. He's been depressed for years and doesn't want to admit it. And now she thinks he's starting to develop the symptoms of dementia. And all I can say to her is, try to get him to a doctor. Oh, she says he won't go to a doctor. Well, maybe if you said nothing to do with his brain, your brain, your mental health, depression, don't use those words. But talk about, as people age, it's good to go get our vitamin levels checked, to do a blood test. But then I told her, perhaps you want to give the doctor a heads up, like call the doctor's office to say, I'm going to try to encourage him to make an appointment. If he doesn't, would you be able to call us to make that appointment so that he will listen to you, not me? Because if I tell him to call, he might be pushing back that it's, he won't listen to me, his wife of 40 some years. But so maybe there's ways that we can get it to turn around to get them to have the doctor phone. But then when she does speak to the doctor to say, I'm worried about his cognitive abilities while he's there, can you also look into this? And so make it like a natural, you're here for your blood work, but let me just do a couple more tests to see how you're doing overall. And I like to say, wink, wink, we do this for all people over the age of 80 or something like that. Like we try to do this for all our patients, meaning you're not special. We're not pulling you out to make you because you've got a problem, because it could put people's back up and they may not want to trust the doctor. They may not trust if you're putting them on the spot thinking you have a problem and your wife called us and we're going to have to test you. That is not something comfortable for a lot of people. So trying to do it in a gentle way to get the testing done in a casual way, like, oh, we do this for everybody and it's just a blood test for people to check your vitamin levels. It just seems less daunting as you're checking my brain because you think I'm crazy, So that's one way of just getting creative on getting people to get their appointment to figure out what's going on. But no, and we mentioned this in the past before, how sadly people are affected by anosognosia. Now, I know that's a word that a lot of people probably haven't heard, but I've said it and I've used it so much in my practice as a dementia consultant that there are individuals who are actually affected by this. Anosognosia, and I like to say it slowly to spell it out, anosognosia. So this is something that is known as when a person has no awareness, they have an illness. They have no awareness, they've got a problem. They can't comprehend it, and it does happen to a lot of people with schizophrenia. But it also happens in the world of dementia care as well. They think I'm fine. I can still drive. There's nothing wrong with me. I don't have a problem cooking. I don't need to move into a care home. I'm perfectly fine living on my own. But the family, the friends, the neighbors all know, no, there's something really wrong here. They're missing meals. They're not eating properly. They're eating things that are maybe moldy, or they're driving. There's so many accidents they've had in the last few months. There could be things going on, but the person has, like, it's almost like a denial. But anosognosia is a condition where they just don't think there's anything wrong. So that's why often people won't go to the doctor. But we want to encourage them in a gentle way. So that's why I like to use the gentle way of getting them to see a doctor, because then they'll get the better help. But if they never see a doctor and there's no diagnosis, what if it is something we can treat? Because in some cases, even Lyme disease can happen and it's treatable and it looks like Alzheimer's disease, but it's not. And maybe we can treat the depression if he goes to the doctor and, get the depression medication to see maybe if that's helpful, and maybe to prescribe more exercise, and maybe to prescribe having more purpose and, doing more things to alleviate the depression. And maybe the symptoms of dementia will go away.
Yeah, right.
It's always a hope.
Yeah. Well, you bring up something that we talk about a lot on this particular show about purpose. And men, because, get up, go to the office or go to the construction site, whatever the job may be, right? Yeah. That the age comes around, oh yeah, you got to retire, and they go into retirement, and then they actually fall into a depression because of that purpose is gone.
Yeah. So it's finding ways to get around that and having new ideas shift in society. And over the last, I'm going to say at least 7 or 8 years, there has been the uprising of these men's sheds, the men's sheds. So I don't know if you've heard about them.
Well, yeah, actually, I'm part of a men's group. We're an empowerment group, and we do it on Zoom. And the guy that started, he's a business coach in Toronto. But yeah, and it's an empowerment thing, right? Because no one wants to talk about we talk about, of course, the empty nester syndrome, but we don't talk about what happens to men because, hey, we can't do that thing anymore that we did for so many years. Whatever it may be. Guys out there listening, you know what I'm talking about. That thing that you do every day for work or to feed your purpose,
I believe we all need to continue to have some kind of purpose to keep us going, keep us motivated, get us up in the morning. And I was just on the phone call this morning with somebody from a Probus club where I'll be speaking next year. So they're booking out their speakers. And to learn a little bit more about the Probus organization, it's men over the age of 65 or 55 maybe, who come together, and they may have been retired or they may be still working, but they socialize on a regular basis, and they have speakers, and they learn things, and they connect, and they're also doing philanthropy work, and there's a variety of different things. Every organization is different, but that's just one type. So there's the men's sheds are also communities have together these abilities for men to come and work in the shed. So they have all the tools to do woodworking projects. And I think that's fantastic for the men to get out, because maybe they moved now out of their large home to a condo and they don't have the ability to use their hands to do these projects like they used to, and sanding and painting and whatever it might be. So I love seeing that these men's sheds are growing around the world and allowing the men as a place to hang out and do things. Yeah. So there's other opportunities, and I love that you've created your own group for the men to get together. But there's meetup groups, but we need to change that narrative that it's okay for men to get together and to do their. And I see a lot of the men getting together for coffees in the morning. I know a family member of mine used to get together every morning for coffee with a few of the fellas, and walking groups that people do as well. So it's purpose.
No, I know that you said one time to me when we were. It was something about the circles that were in the dementia village that you were building in Langley, BC. Okay. Yeah. And you said that dementia patients like to walk. But isn't there a link between it's something that nature put there, a link between walking and clearing of the mind? where you're talking about walking groups where we're walking as a group and we're socializing, we're talking, but we're also exercising, and we're
Yeah.
also clearing out whatever those toxins are in our brain, so that we have a clearer mind, right?
Well, I think it's fantastic to do the walking with groups outdoors. I think that is
Yeah.
incredible, all of that. But some individuals that are affected by dementia, unfortunately, their family members or the community loses their trust that they're going to find their way back home on their own in the community. So there's that high risk of getting lost, depending on their stage and their abilities in the community. And what typically happens is that their world will start to shrink more because they don't want to, either they're afraid to go out or their families are stopping them from getting out to do all this exercising, that the exercising will eventually stop. And then in care homes, unfortunately, there's not a lot of space. There's only like usually small courtyards for people to go out in a safe, enclosed environment, but nothing as big as the village. The village is 5 acres of places for them to roam aimlessly or just really get that exercise, to be outdoors without the worry of outside dangers of cars or whatever it might be, getting lost in the community. So I love that the village has that ability to walk, whereas majority of the long-term care or assisted living homes don't have that safe environment and vast space to do the walking.
Yeah. Now, you're reminding me of you helped me with my neighbor, and it was very difficult, and so bear with me, folks, as I get through this. But my neighbor, she used to walk every day. You see her walk, and she had a specific path that she walked, and then of course the pandemic hit, and we all had to start closing off and stuff like that, and her world started shrinking. She wasn't able to walk, and at one point I think she almost got lost and her husband caught up with her. But he eventually came and he said, I need help. And it's like, but where do I find it? And I contacted you, and you gave me the right things to talk to him about, and the whole thing was long and short of it is that I didn't really feel comfortable talking to him, but because of your encouragement, I was able to talk to him. I was able to sit there and tell him, it's like, this is what you need to do first. You need to find this sort of piece of paperwork to make sure you have it, so that you can always be there for your wife. And as a couple, they've had a beautiful relationship. That they actually grew up together through World War II in a town that the Nazi regime tromped straight through on their way to France. It's like, because they speak a combination of, it's a German French kind of dialect that they have. It's like, I've kind of understood it because her parents grew up in Holland at around the same time. But it's like, I was like, wow. So to separate those two would be kind of devastating. And it's that conversation that I had with you, and you coaching me towards some of that has really helped them.
Well, I'm so happy that you were able to speak with them and you felt comfortable enough to share the information. So sadly, I've noticed that a lot of families don't know where to turn. If they weren't in the career of healthcare, they wouldn't know the right place to call. They have no idea where to go first. And it shocks me, but in a way it doesn't, because I wouldn't know the first place to go to talk about electrical engineering. Like, I mean, it's not my field either. So, which body do you go to first, and where do you talk? So I'm sad for that. And the information that on the World Wide Web, there's so much of it, and every situation is unfortunately different, depending on where you live, depending on your circumstance, your are you married? Are you not married? And, the family dynamics, who's got power of attorney, who doesn't. There's lots of factors involved. And my company is actually called Personalized Dementia Solutions. We've just dropped the personalized because it's so long as a name, but every situation has to be personalized so we can provide those dementia solutions. And so it makes it challenging because there's no one-stop cookie cutter approach to help these families through their dementia journey if there is a diagnosis of dementia. And, some families may not be able to live together because their house is not, it's not safe. They've got stairs or, whatever it might be, that maybe they have their own health condition that they can't take care of the person with dementia. So we can come up with other living arrangements or other opportunities, or maybe there does need to be more care in the form of long-term care that will give the best support to that individual and allow the caregiver not to be the full-time primary caregiver, but to now be the visiting husband or wife, and not to have that heavy responsibility to make them burn out. And we don't want caregiver burnout. So every situation is going to be different. Maybe we can bring in supports. Maybe we can have a weekly schedule of supporting people coming in to help out. Maybe there's volunteers that we can approach to do the walking with her, to keep her walking. Maybe we can use technology. Maybe we can use a GPS for her shoes or her purse, and there's a variety of different things that can be tried.
Wow, that's pretty high-tech GPS shoes. Wow.
Yeah,
I didn't even know that existed.
Oh, yes. I've had families just be so grateful they've used those devices. One family member had said they weren't sure what the husband was up to at night. Well, when they looked on the report of the GPS shoes, it was showing it going really, really fast into town. So they found out he was taking the car. He was taking the car at night when he didn't have a license. He shouldn't have been driving. So there's things like this that were happening that those GPS shoes helped to find where he was and what was going on. And because people do go missing, and it's a reality. It's a scary reality, but it happens a lot.
Yeah. There was another lady in our neighborhood that she actually went missing one night, and if it hadn't been for the fact that there's a neighborhood watch and they just happened to see her a couple of times, so they were able to report to the police that
Good.
but that just leads to the things that we need to actually make sure we have in place in our communities, right? So
there's a lot of work that can be done within the communities too. Yes. I can go on and on about that, but we don't want to see tragedy. And there has been lots of tragedies already. People have gone missing in the night wearing pajamas and slippers in the cold weather and didn't make it through the night. Or there has been cases of people gone missing and we've never seen them again. They're still reported missing. The week that my book was published, in my community, a gentleman went missing, and they still haven't found him to this day since 2013.
Wow. And you're here in British Columbia also, right?
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
So I also just want to say I was on the phone with a client last night who said mom was wandering a lot, but as a dementia consultant, a lot of what I do is behavioral management, and I give strategies on how we can handle these changes in behaviors. So I like to be the detective. This is what I talk about in my book. We need to become detectives to figure out the reason why this person is always wanting to leave. Is it because they are leaving? Is it always in the morning, or is it always at night? Or is there any pattern at all? Because if there is a pattern, okay, let's go deeper on that. Where are they going every morning? Do they think they have to go back to work because they forgot that they're retired? Or are they leaving to go pick up the kids from school? Or are they leaving? Like, is there a pattern? Is there a reason for it? Is it because of the garbage? Is it because of this? Like, what is causing that person to wander away? And then maybe we can put a note on the door that says, "Hi, Mom. Today's Sunday. You've got the day off. Enjoy." Or something so that she doesn't leave to think she has to go to work.
Right.
There's creative things we can do to help that person stay safe, but it takes some brainstorming.
Yeah.
And it takes
And
becoming the detective.
yeah, and that's one of the reasons that I refer a lot of people to you is because you get creative in
Mm.
discovering, you know, maybe that person in their 20s needed to walk to the
Mm.
market every day to
Yeah,
pick up
they're doing what
whatever
they
it
used
was
to
is
do.
for dinner or whatever. You don't know, right? But
And some
with
people
a
leave because they don't think it's their house. Even though they've been there for years, they think they have to go home. And therefore, I remember a couple, he was just so frustrated with his wife. Like, I mean, every night she's packing up her stuff. I've got to go home. We got to go home. And so instead of saying, no, we are home. Look, this is our house. He was fighting back to say, you're wrong. This is our home. Instead, I taught him to kind of go with the flow to say, okay, but let's just stay here one more night. And that's all he had to say. And she goes, we'll go home tomorrow. Yeah, we'll go home tomorrow. It's comfortable here. It's too cold outside. Let's just stay here tonight. It's fine. It's free. Something like that. And therefore, oh, okay. And then he could unpack her stuff. And the next day starts all over again. She didn't even ask until the nighttime.
yeah,
When are we going home? And then she wouldn't remember the day before. The same response was given. Let's just stay here tonight. It's nice here. We'll go home tomorrow. And that is what I call therapeutic reasoning. It's using reasoning with that person that's going to provide a benefit and not cause conflict. We are home. No, we're not. Yes, we are. If they really believe it's not their home, instead of fighting with them, go, okay, but we'll stay here one more night. It's good here.
yeah. You have a bunch of those tools, and you talk about the shed, and you have that huge tool shed of helping people deal with loved ones and help them deal with life. It's an amazing place. I think if I was to stand around and look at your mind at this tool shed you have, I would be amazed. Karen, we're starting to run out of time, so
Yeah.
best ways to get a hold of you and work with you, and maybe some blog posts or something that people should
Oh,
find.
yeah.
And I
I
know
have
your
lots
book
of
is on
blog posts.
Amazon. So yeah,
My book is on Amazon. My book is also available on my website. So I think the go-to point and place is my website. So it's dementiasolutions.ca here in Canada. And so I have to say I've been very blessed. I've been blessed with knowing my purpose, knowing my path in life, and
mm-hmm.
I've been just so passionate about wanting to help families to get through this and help those people with dementia. Ultimately, that's who I'm helping, is those people with dementia, but also their caregivers, and helping the other caregivers, and trying to educate the community as much as I can. So I think that if people want to reach out, the website is the best place to know how to contact us. There's lots of information there, and we support families with a free 20-minute consultation just to see if we're the right fit for you, but also to see if maybe there's other services that you could benefit from that you weren't aware of. So we always like to start there with that free consult.
Wow. All right. Thanks so much for coming on the show. Thank you, everybody, for listening in and joining the conversation. And wherever you may see that subscribe button, please click it so you can get more information about how to live a great life with our podcast. Thanks, Karen.
Thanks for all you do, Michael. Thanks.
This show has been produced by Depictions Media. Please contact us at depictions.media for more information.